And if we need it, especially as a Muslim and non-Muslims, then we have to listen to the Muslim philosophers, the way they define it in Islamic civilization. So they say that it's a state of a complete fulfillment and inclination to human pleasures with power and stability, and it differs from pleasures because it is a momentary, and from farah that I mentioned, which is also happiness because of its moments. But sa'ada is the one which is happiness in Islamic civilization. It is the one that we need frequently as a human beings. The opposite of this sa'ada is shakawa. And both terms are used in Islamic civilization. And literally, it is derived from the word shakia, meaning that which means to become distress, and also a word of a broad meaning. So it is pertinent for the Muslims of today to understand the exact opposite of sa'ada, because sometimes if we are in the opposite of sa'ada, which is happiness, we don't really know how to define ourselves and to come out from the opposite of happiness. That is why it is important for us to know the opposite of sa'ada, which is shakawa. And Quran has also rendered that. In English, approximately the equivalent term of this shakawa, which means the opposite of the happiness, it is great misfortune. Great misfortune. It is also misery, strangeness of circumstances. For instance, if we are in a very serious circumstances, it is called circumstances because it is surrounded us and we have no way out from that. It is another word which is equivalent to it in English. Shakawa is distress. It is disquiet, despair, adversary of the issues that is coming to you, because we always go to the positive things. Then when the adversary, the negative things or the opposite is coming to us, then we become very, very sad. This is where our happiness always go. And this shakawa always, it creates so many things in us. Among these things is khawf, which is fear, fear of unknown things. Another thing is also huzn. Huzn means sadness. It means grief. It also means sorrow and sad roughness of soul. Roughness of soul when it happens to a human being. And it also means dank. Dank means that narrowness. Well, it means that when our lives become very, very narrow, and this is how our brains and this is how our minds are looking to it, and as if that we have no way out in the troubles that we are, then it is the moments that we lose our happiness, which is supposed to be with us as always. We have hasrat, another term for it, which is profound grief and grief for something gone and never to be experienced again. So there are so many terms in Islamic civilization that we can use. In the Quran, Quran has used also the shakawa, which is the shakiyun. It also used the word sa'id, which also means the happiness. All these terms are used in the Quran. But among the Muslim philosophers, there is a lot of issues that they have derived from the issues of happiness. First of all, let us look into Al-Kindi, for instance, and they are the philosophers that we are going to look, how do they deliberate the word happiness, which is sa'ada, in use as Arabic language and Islamic civilization. So we are going to go through, for instance, through the Al-Kindis, the way he defined the happiness, which is our first Muslim philosopher, Razi, Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, Miskawayhi, and Al-Ghazali. And it is known that among the Muslim philosophers were influenced by the Greek. We have to be very frank that they were influenced by the Greek philosophical heritage in their studies of the subject of happiness. Let us accept that. We are not denying that. But they did not stop at this limit when they inherited these philosophical ideas or theories about the happiness from the Greek philosophy. They did not stop at that limit. They connected the Greek philosophical heritage, which was specially represented in Aristotle, to the Islamic heritage. This point should be very, very clear, and I will repeat it. Our Muslim philosophers, they did a lot to connect the Greek philosophical heritage in Islamic civilization, which was specially represented in Aristotle, to the Islamic heritage. For they lived under the shadow of Islamic civilization. That is why they managed to do this. So we have to give credit to our Muslim philosophers and not thinking that they were only having the accepted mind. For instance, whenever they study or they conceived from the Greek philosophers, they will just accept it like that. They will just receive it without digesting it, without analyzing it, and to come out with their own. That is why we have to give the very, very great credit to our Muslim philosophers. I would like to start by our Muslim philosopher, the way he looked about the happiness, who is Al-Kindi, and Al-Kindi is our first Muslim philosopher. Therefore, I will start by him. If we trace happiness, which is as-sa'ada, in his philosophy, and which is very widely in Islamic civilization, according to him, we see that he did not present a concept of definition for happiness. He did as he did for the virtue. Virtue means al-fadila and the pleasure, but he only presented general picture for what will actualize our happiness. Please, this is very, very important. He presented to us the general picture for what will actualize our happiness. Therefore, it shows that in Islamic civilization and also in a human life, the happiness is always, we have the elements, which is anasir, that we have to follow to actualize our happiness. This should be taken into consideration. So these were the things that Al-Kindi presented. He says that happiness is a purification of soul. Happiness is purification of soul, stirs by the soul to the real world, and it also knowledge, rejection of sorrow. So here he connected the happiness to the knowledge, because knowledge always rejects the sorrow, and safeguarding from pains. Look at how he connected it. He connected it to the knowledge, and we will see how he mentioned. So according to him, in the elements that constitute happiness are our mind. It is our action. It is the choice that we make. It is the reflections of our own deeds, our actions, our opinions, our wills, our knowledge, our understanding, our conjecture, our determination in this life, and also our certainty, meaning that the way that we believe in things. The same applies to our desires. These are the elements that we have to manage in our life to actualize the happiness. So in Islamic civilization, it is very clear. This is the issues that he has put forward for us to actualize. So to him, happiness means freedom from the material world. Freedom from the material world, liberation from the sensational pleasures. This is also very, very important. How can we liberate ourselves from the sensational pleasures, the bodily wishes? This needs the determination that he mentioned among the he mentioned the elements. So we need these, how our bodily wishes, how we can withstand it, our desires to the penetration in the world of purification. Therefore, first we have to purify our soul. We have to make sure that we liberate ourselves from the material issues of this world, and as well as our bodily wishes. He's not saying that we should abstain, we should refrain from them completely. But here, what he means is how determined we are to be able to control these in our life. So if we do that, we will get serenity and clearness, also to the penetration of the spiritual world and the entirely light. Therefore, here there is things to do with our religion at the same time, because it's the religion that will teach us all this. So he put emphasis on the purification of our souls by saying that the soul, which purified from all sensory affiliations, materials, faculty of desire, and faculty of anger, this particular should has now its way to happiness. So how can we control ourselves to refrain ourselves from our wishes that are in line with our religion, including our bodily desires and wishes? Here, every human being needs to be determined, needs to be straightforward. So if this should reach in its peak of purification, the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pour forth his light and mercy in our souls. And this is what we are lacking now in our human life, because we are very far from purification. We are very far from controlling our mind, our desires that our mind are always pushing us to, as well as our bodily wishes. If we are able to control it, Al-Kindi is saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pour forth his light and mercy on us. And it will, at that time, enjoys everlasting bliss in us over every bliss by eating, drinking, marrying, hearing, seeing, smelling, and touching, all our senses. That's why when we are happy, we see that all our senses are in control, and we will be able to do what we are going to do, because we gain the happiness. So if one observes the elements that constitute happiness in Al-Kindi's view, for instance, we see that intellect, soul, and knowledge are mentioned. But explanation of the relationship between them it is not. Why? Because Al-Kindi has already known that the knowledge cannot come without purification of soul. That is why sometimes we will see some people, they have a lot of knowledge, but lack of purification of the soul, lack of controlling of their mind, lack of controlling of their bodily desires, we see them, they are not happy. So this must be very clear to us, how he connected it. That is to do with Al-Kindi. Let us look to Al-Razi, one of our main Muslim philosophers. After assessing happiness in Al-Kindi, it is worth now to examine Abu Bakr al-Razi, his views on happiness. We can consider him as a medical doctor. Therefore, he will lead us, we can say that he will be able to lead us to gain the genuine happiness in our life. Al-Razi, he combined the philosophy and medicine in Islamic civilization. And he was philosopher as well as a medical doctor. So we can also say that he was psychologist and he was psychotherapist who will be able to examine people as well to know how happy they are and also what level of the happiness do they obtain and how do they obtain it and how do they actualize it. So happiness in Al-Razi's view is abridged in 4 points. First point is that happiness is restoration of character. How can we restore our character? And in this world, not be actualized unless by the assessment and complement and compliance of the mind, curbing the prevention of the passion. How can we curb? It means how can we stop? How can we be able to control our passion in everything that we want to do, as well as acknowledging our faults of soul and correcting them. These are the things that human beings always, we don't realize. How are we always going to acknowledging our faults? We never do things in this world or in our behavior, in our character, and then try to acknowledge the faults of our souls and correcting them. We always compile things in activities. Therefore, this always creates sorrow as well as lack of happiness in our life. So we must doing that. Also keeping away from what damages our souls of sensational love, pride, envy, accusing in anger, lies, avarice, and so on. All these things, human beings do possess it. Therefore, they need a very, very determined and mind and souls that they will be able to correct and that they will be able to control this. We have seen that he has mentioned an anger. That is why our Prophet ﷺ said that ليس الشديد بسرعة. Being tough doesn't mean that you can wrestle people, you can defeat them, you can put them down, you can knock them. ليس الشديد بسرعة. إنما الشديد من يملك نفسه عند الغضب. That being tough in your behavior, in your character, is how you are going to comport yourself when you are angry. That is why Al-Razi mentioned among these things that anger is the leading. The second point is that happiness is not attainment of bodily pleasures. Because if happiness is going to be obtained, is going to be get by our bodily pleasures, but it is rather acquisition of knowledge and practicing of justice. So, look at Al-Razi. He is saying that our bodily pleasures cannot give us genuine happiness. It can give us surur, it can give us bahjah, it can give us al-farah, which are momentary. They are not everlasting. But what will give us, please, are you with me?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. So I'm repeating the second point of Abu Bakr al-Razi. He's saying that the second point of happiness that we should pay attention is that happiness cannot be obtained, it cannot be received of bodily pleasures, but it is rather acquisition of knowledge and practicing of justice. Why acquisition of knowledge? Why practicing of justice? Because knowledge gives us power. Knowledge gives us power. all taken a little bit from every field of knowledge builds our character and give us the power that we will be able to use to control ourselves. But if it is bodily desires, we will not be able, that cannot produce to us a genuine happiness. Practicing of justice. If we look at the justice issue in the Quran, it is abundant. In the prophetic tradition, the abundant hadith of our prophet talking about the justice. But why the justice always? And what is its connection to the happiness? Here we realize that lack of justice, first of all to ourselves as human beings, our organs, our thinking, our behavior, the way we treat people. If we don't do justice into all this, first of all, this is to do to ourselves. We must change that. If we don't do that, we will not be able to gain happiness. Let alone our leaders who are not doing justice to us. Whenever we sense lack of justice from our leaders, and we are not anywhere to tell them, this always creates the opposite of happiness in us. That is why the majority of people in the world now are living in a very sad situations. They are very sad. No one knew where to direct himself to because of lack of justice. But let us start from ourselves to do justice. Into practicing acquisition of knowledge as well as practicing of justice. Maybe it may sound very strange to us. That is why I need to emphasize on this, the connection of these two things, especially the knowledge to the happiness, or the connection of knowledge to the happiness, because it gave us power, because we take from every knowledge, we take it a little bit to build ourselves. That train us so that we will be able to have power, and then we will be able to control ourselves. But he rejected the bodily desires. That will not lead us to. Justice is the second thing. So he says that the better thing for which we are created is not achievement of bodily desires, but it is acquisition of knowledge and practicing of justice, by which is our liberation from this world to the world in which there is no death or pain, which is hereafter. So while we are in this world, then we should know that whatever we are doing is going to lead us to the hereafter. We have to do better for ourselves. We should not forget our own gains that we have gained in this world, but we should do better to other people. Why? Because we will gain happiness, and the people for ourselves, and the people will also gain happiness. So the third point in him, in Al-Razi, is that happiness, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah has described it in man, depends on his capacity and his closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the nearest servant to God are more knowledgeable. That is why he connected to the knowledge. More just, those who do justice, more merciful ones. These are the issues that always create the happiness in us. But please, if you reflect in yourself, we tend to forget this, and we don't see these connections. And that is why I repeat that, I repeat always, I choose this topic. The fourth point in Al-Razi, that happiness takes man to upper world and cautions him against the lower material world. It causes human being. It means it wants human being. against the lower material. We always put all our interest in this world. We put all what we are willing in this world, and we forget the hereafter. So if the genuine happiness will always take us to the upper world, and it is everlasting one, because it will be from hereafter, from here in this world as well as in hereafter. So the pillars of the happiness in Al-Razi's viewpoints is number one, reformation of character. How can we reform our character? Reformation of our character, meaning that our character needs constant reformation, constant revival, constant purification. But how many times as a human beings in our life we try to reform our character? We don't pay attention to reformation of our character. We always think that our character is something that cannot be reformed. And we are always in the routine and continuous following the same character and the same characteristics behavior that we always pursue in our life. So, in Ar-Razi's viewpoint, reformation of our character is there. So that cannot be achieved except we have to appreciate our intellect and submit it. And at the same time, we have to refrain from our passion and inclination, try to identify the defects. It means that the default and the wrongdoings that we always do in our life, as well as we will be able to purify our souls. Number two, pillar number two, happiness is not bodily achievement. It's not happily, it's not bodily achievement. Rather, it is attaining the knowledge and implementation of justice. This is the second pillar. The third pillar Al-Razi mentions is that happiness is the executing all that God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, authorized us to do. So, if we don't follow up what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala authorized us to do in this world, in our life, and to fulfill it, then we will not be able to gain the genuine happiness. We can only gain the surur or bahja or hubur or hubur, and this we said that they are momentary. They can come within 1 minute and go. It's not everlasting happiness. The fourth pillar he mentioned also, and that is to do with philosophers. So that is not what we will be able to discuss here is to learn philosophy. But I bring it down to say that every human being is a philosopher. Because if you are not a philosopher, you will not be able to think about your worldly affairs. And if you think, you will not be able to think properly. That is all that, or simple as that, we will be able to philosophize. So please now we move, after we finish Al-Kindi and also Al-Razi, let us see in Al-Farabi. So Al-Farabi's thought in ethics is based on virtues. Therefore, a happy man is one who possesses virtues. What are the virtues? In Arabic, we call it fada'il. It is the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, granted to us. Nowadays, we use the term values, and the values were not used by our Muslim philosophers in our Islamic civilization. They always use virtues, which is fada'il. They don't use qiyam. Qiyam, which are values, it is used by the many Western philosophers in the Western scholarship. And the Muslim, especially the modern Muslim scholars, inherited that. They are using values which has nothing or which has no connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has given us what we are enjoying with. So they were using the word fada'il, whose opposite was raza'il, meaning that the virtues and vices. because virtues are the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed to us, granted to us, so that when we enjoy them, we will be able to be grateful, and we will say that praise he is deserved to be for him, not that is for him. We say that he deserved the praise because of these virtues. So Al-Farabi, for him, he's saying that for a happy man is the one who possesses virtues, and he knows how to handle them, and he knows that is from his creator, who is Allah the Exalted. And he went on to say about the happy nation. He said the happy nation is which governed by a virtue king and or leader, the one who recognizes the virtues, that they are all from Allah, and that means he has to use it, and he has to implement it with the justice to the people, so that people will be happy. So he declared through good to be one of the elements of happiness, which is khair. Khair means true good of the things that he declared as a perfection in existence, and he who and whose existence is compulsory, while evil is lack of perfection. So whenever we lead to the khair, whenever we act everything in which there is khair, means that the good. But khair in Arabic, if we look at the term, originally it is akhyar. It means something which is most good, or the best, or better. But because of the too much of usage, it became khair. But originally it is akhyar. Evil is also a shar, but now it becomes shar because of the too much of usage. Hello?
Hello.
Should I continue?
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it. Maybe in 5 minutes, because we are also having a discussion with you.
Okay. So, in Al-Farabi's viewpoint, that man's attain happiness for himself through acquiring virtues, which is the good and the best. To him, the peak of these virtues are ethical virtues. So the ethical virtues are the leading elements that we have to pursue in our life so that we will be able to obtain happiness. So he goes on to mention that there are 4 human things. If they occur to the nations and also the communities, they earn them worldly happiness. In the first life, which is life in this world, and the extreme happiness in the last life, which is the hereafter. These are the thinking virtues. And this is what I mentioned. It means that we have to think always about the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed to us. And also ethical virtues and practical vocations and professions. Therefore, we have to make sure that we practice this. Meaning that before we do everything, we need to think in it, and our thinking should be in a very deep way so that we will be able to do that. So if it is a human soul arriving, this is how he defined the happiness, that it is a human soul arriving at perfection in existence. How can we live our life to the perfection, whereby it does not need to its sustenance and any kind of material support, meaning that you have to live it purely without having any material support, meaning that don't indulge in these worldly issues that are exceeding what you need, so that you will not, it will come into your life and it will bring confusion into what you are doing. So this means that the greater happiness is to liberate your soul from the chains of material entities in order for it to become a complete intellect, meaning that a complete mind. From here, man's soul becomes perfect and rid from dirtiness of the matter. So how can soul arrive at this? He explained it, and that will not go very deep into it, because we are looking the impact of this happiness into our life. So we only look at all these issues. So now I will leave Al-Farabi, and then I will look into happiness in Ibn Sina. Ibn Sina is known among the Muslims as well in Islamic civilization as champion, I can say, in the studies of human soul as well. And he wrote almost 33 treatises on the soul, beside chapters of soul in his books. So that is very, very clear. So for him, first, the essential requirement which human being must strive for, according to Ibn Sina, is strive as it's knowing oneself, meaning that knowing the soul. And that is why I said in the Quran, Allah also mentions, وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. In yourself, it means in your own, don't you see? So first we have to look into ourselves. Ibn Sina is also emphasizing at knowing oneself as well as the soul. And this is necessary because he who knows himself knows his Lord. And that is how it should be. And again, and also again, knowing the self elevates to the knowing of the exalted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here, if I'm going to come to the conclusion, I will say that the happiness in Islamic civilization cannot be obtained without purification of our souls, without practicing of justice, without practicing justice, meaning that practicing justice to ourselves first, and also imparting this justice to the people, or treating people with just. We have to restrain from our bodily desires, because bodily desires are the one which always make us or confuse us when we want to gain the everlasting happiness, which is the happiness in this world, as well as the happiness in hereafter. Therefore, we have to make sure that the worldly desires are not involving in what we are doing, and we must be very, very determined to be able to have the control of whatever we do. This is what I will be able to share today. And I think through some discussions, we will come out for more, because I still have the happiness in our Muslim philosopher Al-Miskawayh, who is rather expressing very happiness very broadly in his philosophy. But because of the time strain, I will stop here and get back to Dr. Sujadi and see how.
Okay, thank you very much for the enlightening information about the happiness. Yeah. It seems to me it is a simple thing, but when I hear from your lecture or brainstorming, it seems to be, let's say, to think of deeply about some elements or key elements of the happiness. So here you talk about Sa'ada, wa Sakawa, wa Al-Farah, and also you talk also about the philosophical Greek or Greek heritage, and some other Muslim philosopher like Al-Kindi, Al-Razi, Al-Farabi, and Ibn Sina. And I think I would like to invite the participants to, let's say, response or put some question or whatever in relation to your talk. So I would like to invite the participant, please. So anyone who would like to ask, maybe you may raise your hand, then it will be easy for me to see the picture. Okay. I found here. Okay, yang berbahagia and also Supardi. So please for the yang berbahagia first. Pak Zamzam.
Shukran, thank you. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Dr. Suleiman, Assalamualaikum.
Salam yang bahagia.
Okay. Even though you had a problem with Zooming earlier, I hope and pray you that you are still happy.
Thank you very much, Yang Mulia.
I hope also hope the expert you mentioned also find happiness. Real happiness, not only gain happy only on their theory.
Yes.
Mr. Sulaiman,
Yes.
Basically all humans want to live happily.
Yes.
Therefore, from the past until now, many experts have been looking for happiness, creating their respective theories. Jurisprudence experts, philosophers, and Sufis talk about happiness. Then, my question is simple, but I have 5 questions. What is the essence of the nature or the nature of happiness? The second, where is the happiness? The third, how do we find happiness? The fourth, what is the measure of happiness? And the fifth, whether happiness is earned or gift and destiny. Okay, this is my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's all, Pak Zamzam?
Yes.
Okay, is it clear enough for you, Mr. Suleiman?
Yes. So should I answer these? Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, and for the second one,
Yes.
for the second person who would like to also maybe question or response, Pak Supardi, please.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sorry, your voice, please. Yeah, your voice, please. Your voice.
Okay.
Okay.
So, what kind of knowledge? Yes. What kind of knowledge does Razi mean, and what kind of justice? Saying wider, what we call is very wider terms, and also justice. So, what does Razi mean about knowledge and justice related to happiness? I want to, I need more explanation about this. Thank you, Mr. Suleiman.
Okay, anyone else? Maybe one more? Okay, while waiting for the others, then you may, Mr. Suleiman, respond first to the question or some responses, please.
Yes, as if the first questioner, he asked almost 4 questions, but all four or 5 questions are connected to each other, because I had him asking about the nature of happiness and what is happiness, where is happiness, and also where do we get happiness. So all these questions are connected together. And that is why our Muslim scholars and philosophers give, our first philosopher, the Al-Kindi, we say that he himself, he did not give the, meaning that the comprehensive definition of happiness. And he is our Muslim philosopher. But they gave us the elements that will be able to actualize, meaning that to achieve the happiness. Therefore, the nature of happiness It is the elements that he has given us, which is number one is purification of soul. We mentioned purification of our soul. And how can we purify our soul? We have to purify our soul with our religion by worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where, and also follow very well all the issues that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has authorized us to do. And he mentioned that. So if we are able to fulfill that, then we will be able to achieve our happiness. So all that questions are surrounding around this. That is why, and I also mentioned that our bodily desires also cannot achieve the genuine happiness. It can always achieve what the Arabs, or it is termed in Arabic as surur. Surur also means kind of happiness. Hubur, also kind of happiness. And bahja, and this is what I said, even in Malay, it is used like bahagia. That this type of happiness are momentary ones. It comes and go. But the happiness that our Muslim philosophers are talking in Islamic civilization, it is about the everlasting happiness that we can live with in this world as well as in hereafter. So your question seems to be like the happiness that we read among the Western philosophers, or those who are thinking that the happiness can be gained with our material, from our material elements. If we do that, we will get happiness. If we do this, we will get happiness. If we get money, we will get happiness. If we get a beautiful woman, we will get happiness. No, these things are, if we get them, they are all bodily desires. The genuine happiness is how can we purify our soul? By purifying our soul, which is by worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to fulfill all what he authorized us, then we will be able to achieve the genuine happiness, not the kind of happiness that they have terms as surur and also al-hubur and bahja and others. So this is how I will be able to answer to the first question. The second question is very, very important, and I also thank the questioner about what kind of knowledge that Razi said that we should learn, and as well as justice, on what their connection to the happiness. If we look at the knowledge, I mentioned that the knowledge always empowered us. No matter what type of knowledge that we learn, though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنْ عِلْمٍ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, I do not give the knowledge except a little. But the little knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and the theory of knowledge, which is epistemology, is also another field of discussion. But the knowledge is to know, if we say that the knowledge is to learn the sciences, for instance, meaning that from every science, no science is exceptional. We have to learn it a little bit. So when we acquire this knowledge, it will be able to empower us. Knowledge empowers us. That is why in the Quran also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هَلْ يَسْتَوِيَ الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Why always the ilm, the knowledge plays important part in our life? Because it empowers us to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as to know ourselves, as well as to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we will be able to know ourselves, because he is the creator. When it comes to connection of justice, it is a very delicate issue here. At the same time, not delicate. Everything that we do in this world is based on justice. That is why we cannot be happy without the justice. Justice to ourselves, meaning that in following what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that we should do, justice to the organs that he has given us, our senses, our eyes, our hands, all these things, we have to do justice to them. When we do justice to ourselves, then we will be able to do justice to other people in other material things. And justice field is very wide. We have to divide everything to them as in justice way. We don't have, that is why Al-Farabi in his happiness, he mentioned even a happy nation. Because the virtues that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, we have to be grateful for that. And the leaders who have them, because being a leader is a virtue from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he gives to the leadership, or he gives the royalty and kingship to whom he likes. So why he's choosing one human being to be given this one too? Because he sees that his Khalifa is representing him on this earth. At the same time, he is capable of doing justice to the people. That is why the justice, any human being who sends lack of justice, sends sadness, or he will send sadness, because he feels, even let us take a simple family in the house. The parents has to do justice to the kids, starting from the mother. This always creates lack of happiness in the family, let alone among the people, among the nation, with the leaders, with the kings and others. So the connection of knowledge and justice to the happiness is very, very durable. We cannot separate it from that. This is my humble answer to the questions that have been asked.
Okay, thank you very much for the responses and your answer, Mr. Suleiman. Yeah, we still have 15 minutes to go. Then, anyone who would like to also pose some question, or maybe a response, or add something, you may.
Yeah, Pak Sujadi.
Or whatever. If not, then I would like to ask you something, maybe small thing, Mr. Suleiman.
Yes, Dr.
Yeah. We are living in the new normal life situation.
Yes.
And then it seems to us that everything is difficult. And now we are talking about happiness, and we should stay happy then. So what kind of formula you would like to tell us about the, let's say, staying happy, and in order to be able to do our activity well, etc. So what kind of formula you would like to suggest, please?
I will follow what our Muslim scholars have always advised us to do, which is to stick to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has authorized us to do. If we are able to fulfill it, then we will be able to gain everlasting happiness. That is why I'm saying the happiness that I'm talking about is not the momentary ones. And we always look for the momentary happiness. That is why we are always sad at the same time, because this comes and go. So the formula is to stick to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has authorized us to do, to perform everything according to how it should be performed, to stick to our prayers, to do justice to the people, whatever that we know, that I don't need to elaborate, because we know what our religion is and how we can practice it, and all these things are in front of us. That is why we have to keep ourselves from the evil that is always coming into our veins, that is also coming to our mind, our thinking. We have to be very, very determined. And to do that, we can also look into the Sufis as well. Their happiness, or their elements of happiness. That is, if we look into Al-Ghazali's, he will also say that happiness is not only for this world, it is also for hereafter. But if we confine it, dear Dr. Sujadi, to this world only, then we will not be able to gain everlasting happiness. We have to make sure that the happiness is for this world as well as for the hereafter. So this will give us the determination as well as zeal. It means that we can be zealous to always continue to do what Ar-Razi termed as al-khair, which means that super good, or the good perfection that we will be able to execute in our issues. We should not connect it to only for this world. It has to be in this world as well as in the hereafter. It means that if we are now in a very difficult situation of COVID, of poverty, of economical problems, let us look into ourselves. Let us look, we behave towards these things, because we are the main mechanism of deliberating, of functioning all these issues. So do we do justice to ourselves? The knowledge that we have acquired, that knowledge empowers us or not? Do we reform our character frequently? We don't. That is why when things befall or disasters befall, we are in great confusion. So these are the formulas that we have to use, Dr. Sujadi, if I answered your question.
Yeah, is it clear, Mr. Suleiman? Thank you. Pak Rifai Abdu, would you like to respond or whatever, please?
Oke. Nah, boleh nggak saya ditanya nih?
It's my pleasure.
Oke. Wah, pada orang Cirebon jangan
Iya, beres itu. Mr. Suleiman is waiting for your questions or response.
Oke. Welcome to Yogyakarta, Dr. Suleiman.
Ya, dalam bahasa Inggris, bahasa saya tak baik. Kalau soalan dalam bahasa Melayu, mungkin saya tak boleh faham dengan baik.
Okay, good.
Sorry, we talk about bahasa Cirebon, Bruno. Cirebon is, which is very regional.
Buat terjemahan. Dr. Sujadi.
Okay, Dr. Suleiman.
Yes. Yang Mulia.
Based on your information about happiness,
yes,
seems to me that happiness is only the real happiness is only the eternal one, internal one. Are there any possibilities to say that happiness can also next external, especially if it's an external? You know that it seems to me that happiness in the perspective of Islam, in Islamic perspective, tend to be internal, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that is the problem. My question is that, are there any possibilities for me and for us to have external happiness? External happiness. I mean, happiness that come from the other person, that can influence other person, that can, what you call this, can have good impact to the other person. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It is very.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Sorry, but yeah.
It is very.
Thank you very much.
It is. Thank you. It is very interesting question, and I thank you for that.
Okay.
You may
answer directly, Mr. Suleiman. Please.
Yes, we cannot have internal happiness without having external happiness.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yes, because what is the character? If we look for Al-Kindife, he said a purification of character. Character cannot be in ourselves. Character is our outer behavior. It is our outer functioning of deeds. So if we have it in ourselves, purify our soul, it is automatically demonstrates our character outside the people. And people, even when they see us, they will be happy. Do you know that some people, when they see you, Yang Mulia, they are happy? Why are they happy? Because it will be maybe the reaction that you always give them. You do justice in your treatment to them, because you have this, you purify your soul and you practice knowledge, you acquire knowledge, and this knowledge has empowered you. Therefore, the purification of soul cannot only be internal. For instance, al-khulq, which is character, it is always something, that combination of the internal and external. The very easy way of saying, if we look at the dua of our Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he look at the mirror or he sees himself, he will say that, Allahumma kama ahsanta khalqi fahsin khulqi. Allah, the way that you have make my appearance better, I'm begging you, I'm praying to you also to make my internal also better. That is khalq and khulq. It is the same word, but only the vocalizational sign change the meaning, khalq and khulq. So it is one coin with two faces. The internal happiness always reflects our external happiness. I think I'm clear and the question is answered.
Okay, Pak Rifai, is it clear, yeah? Clear enough, yeah? Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Suleiman, yeah? Yang Mulia, Mr. Suleiman. You just mentioned the word Yang Mulia, yeah? Okay. Whatever about the happiness, I think is very useful for us, and there are no question more, I think, from the participants. So I would like to thank you very much to Mr. Suleiman, who has given us kinds of knowledge about the happiness, and I wouldn't conclude what you spoke about, but I would like to say that hopefully then we can purify our soul. Then the second one, we can empower our knowledge so that we can use our knowledge for being happy. And the last one, hopefully we can do justice not only for ourselves but also for others. And then the three elements will lead us to be happy. May Allah bless us then. Thank you, and thank you for the all participants, your attention especially, and question and responses, and hopefully then we can see you in another opportunity. And time is already up now, so that's why please give applause to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Suleiman. Thank you, and thank you. I will see you soon in another opportunity, Mr. Suleiman.
I thank you very much for giving
You are welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
My best ticket to Professor from Indonesia.
Jam. Semangat pisan deh jam.
Mr. Suleiman, do you speak bahasa Melayu ya? Melayu.
Abang baru Cirebon dah lagi. Anak-anak anu bahasa Indonesia dia beli ngomong deh.
Saya masih belajar.
Oh, masih belajar. Tuh Pak Abdu, itu masih belajar bahasa Cirebon katanya.
Bahasa saya
best
Indonesia.
Iya.
Guru yang mengajar saya bahasa Melayu yaitu kawan-kawan saya daripada Indonesia.
Oke.
Saya dari Malaysia.
The best way to mastering.
Thank you.
Melayu is marrying Malay.
Insya Allah. Thank you very much, Dr. Sujadi.
Have you been in Indonesia, Mr. Suleiman?
I have not yet visited, but
Okay. Hopefully someday, yeah.
insyaAllah.
It is quite interesting to be in Indonesia, especially to learn many kinds of languages.
Insya Allah. I will do.
Mungkin dengan peserta yang masih tersisa untuk pengambilan foto sebentar. We can take picture together maybe.
Oh yeah, okay. So please open your video. Then the committee will take our picture, please.
Okay, I will count.
Already? Finish?
Still yet.
Well, yeah.
Already, Mbak Lili?
Okay.
Kholas, lama?
Dulu tuh maskernya tuh nggak jelas, Mbak, panitia.
Mbak, panitia dibuka maskernya katanya. Nah,
Nggak jelas ngomongnya.
Alah, fokus.
We can take it together.
Oke, kholas lama, Mbak Lili.
Oke, one. Udah. Oke.
Oke.
Sudah ya?
Nah.
Oke, thank you. Oke.
I hope my face is clear. There's
Okay.
blur.
Okay. Yeah, because of the light, yeah, backlight. So
Okay. Syukran.
from here.
Dr. Suleiman. Selamat datang di Indonesia. Fi yaumin al-ayyam.
Insyaallah.
Hadrat satazur ila biladina
قريبا باذن الله بعد ما تنزل ان شاء الله.
Subhanallah.
Insyaallah ya. Insyaallah.
membaca itu melahena.
ان شاء الله سازوركم باذن الله.
Dia orang Dermayu, orang Cirebon, Pak Ifai belum ngerti.
Ila Jawa ya. Mr. Suleiman ila Jawa ya.
Okay, thank you.
Nah, wa Cirebon min Jawa Wusta.
Ila Cirebon, ila Cirebon.
Thank you. Ilaliqa Mr. Suleiman. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Okay, so thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Suleiman. Yeah, you may leave if you would like to do other things. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Suleiman. Thank you,
I will give
Dr.
you
Suleiman.
that
Thank
speech
you.
to you, yeah, Mr.
And I
Suleiman.
give message to your
Thank you very much.
colleague.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ya. Ya, kami dikit ya, masih.
Prevent.
Ah, iya. Oh. Iya, Cek.
Sehat ah?
Ya. Kapan-kapan ketemu ya?
Iya.
Alhamdulillah.
Iya, sing penting waras kabeh lah.
Beli kuin aran dewek bimet tuh Cek. Wedi ta aran dewek.
Beli, hari kita sering balik malah. Sering Cirebon kita. Balik.
Iya ta.
Iya, ya anak acara wong tua.
Oh iya, benar.
Pribadi sehat kabeh ta?
Ya, alhamdulillah. Kita ki harus juga jarang berbes lah kabeh Cek.
Hari anak
Ini ki Mariam ki ora katon ya. Ini Mariam ki ora katon kowe.
Bu Mariam dipanggil Bu Paripai. Ya sing penting
Kamu gambar tok, ora katon wonge.
Oh iya, mau gambarnya wis jelas ya.
Oh iya ta.
Ya
Ini mau sing ngomong ini Anwar Sanusi ki Cirebon ta? UIN Cirebon.
Iya, Cirebon. Bu.
Oh iya ta.
Ini di Kuningan ini.
Kuningan.
Ya, Mas Anwar di Kuningan. Halo, oh, Mas Anwar lagi sibuk ini. Ditinggal sambil ngopi paling ini. Ini ngumata?
Iya. Ya, insyaallah ada acara-acara bakat anak waktu ya pan melu gitu.
Iya, iya.
Bebas kan oleh beli kan iki.
Oleh, boy bebas wes. Dari adab untuk dunia katanya.
Oh iya.
Lagi
Ya, bagus lah bakal mengkonon tuh ya.
jargonnya lagi mau konon.
Ya, sip.
Iya. Iya, pokoknya siapa bae sing gelem ya wes silakan ono bae.
Iya, oke. Ya benar mengkonon tuh.
Iya, mumpung anak gelem ya kan asli wong Gana.
Iya. Iya, Gana.
Asli wong Gana. Terus
Tapi sekine nang anu nang Darussalam toh.
Darussalam.
Nang maksudnya nang Brunei.
Iya, sedurunge ning Malaysia.
Oh iya tuh. Oh ketemu menang Malaysia tak bari Kang anu. Wildan. Koro kinti koro
Mungkin
jam-jam juga.
Iya, paling mungkin tapi mau ngomongnya ketemu, berarti beda generasi.
Oh iya, iya.
Beda waktu mungkin.
Beda waktu.
Ya, alhamdulillah, yang penting sehat-sehat Kak
ya. Ya, terima kasih ya.
Ya, oke. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Silakan Mbak Laili bisa di-end, Mbak.
Oh ya, siap. Terima kasih untuk peserta Bi-Weekly. Semoga mendapatkan ilmu yang bermanfaat dan berkah. Oke, saya tutup akunnya Mina pada hari ini. Selamat sore. Assalamualaikum.